Earth has been shaped through many centuries by various geographical forces, giving rise to land masses abounding in its range of flora and fauna. One such spot, formed by the accumulation of corals on the volcanic tops of the Indian Ocean ridge, known to us as Lakshadweep Islands. Lakshadweep, also known as Lakshadweep, is a union territory of India. It is an archipelago of 36 coral islands, of which only 11 islands are inhabited by humans. Being 220 kilometres away from the west coast of India, the islands are home to thousands of phenomenal species of living organisms, scattered along the stretch of more than 300 kilometres in the Arabian Sea. The archipelago covers a total geographical area of 32 square kilometres. But the Lakshadweep Islands are bestowed with a large lagoon area of 4,200 square kilometres, which is the basis of the physical existence of these islands. Each island is fringed by coral sands and is marked by huge, shallow and calm lagoons on the western side. The lagoons separate the island from the incoming swells of the outer sea. It is most probably the one and only chain of coral island in the Indian subcontinent. The rich biodiversity of these emerald green islands naturally arouses curiosity amongst people across various occupations. The process of lagoon formation begins when underwater volcanoes erupt, creating extremely high underwater mountains. The hardened lava seamounts are of shallow depth and are very suitable for growth of corals. Hence, these become a home for living organisms of various kinds. Over many million years, the coral reefs then get settled at the edges of these mountains. And rise above the level of the peak, leaving a lagoon of water at the centre. The reef continues to grow over time. Pieces of coral erode due to the ocean waves into tiny grains of sand that pile up on the reef to form tiny islets or ring-shaped islands. Few uninhabited barren reefs serve as nesting grounds for thousands of pelagic birds. One such place is known as the Piti Islands, which is a protected bird sanctuary in the Union Territory of Lakshadweep. The Piti Islands are a breeding ground for various species of terns. The sooty tern, a true tropical seabird, is distinctive amongst terns due to its jet black back cap and a neat white forehead. Another unique species is the noddy tern, which is a solid deep brown and white cap. Most terns feed in their process of flying, scooping up their prey from the surface of the ocean. These birds are long-winded flyers who come to breed in colonies on the sandy, remote islands of Piti. Most species of terns lay 2 or 3 eggs. However, there are a few species which lay only 1 egg. The significance of these islands comes from the fact that such breeding colonies are exceedingly rare in the Indian Territory. Mangroves are one of the key attributes of the Minicoy Islands. These occur in patches around the southern eastern side of the island. These are especially adapted to the rigours of the coastal environment, which include frequent flooding, high salinity, soft sediment, and a lack of oxygen at the roots. This strategical positioning of the mangroves makes them serve as eating and nursing grounds for a wide variety of fishes and other organisms. The mangrove forests form a protective belt around these islands, shielding them from the violent impacts of the sea. The reproductive cycle of mangroves is incredibly unique. They reproduce by producing propagules that stay attached to the mother plant till these are old enough to send in roots into the ground. The propagules may stay attached to the parent plants for 12 to 24 months. As these fall off the mother plant, the tidal influx ensures that these are carried great distances before they strike root in the soft, muddy substratum, thereby helping the parent plant in dispersal of its progeny. Due to changes in weather and ocean currents, certain parts of mangrove forests have been lost, and such ecosystems are struggling to thrive in the coastal environment. Oceans are the largest and the most essential part of the Earth's ecosystem. Covering 70% of this planet, more than 50% of the oxygen in the air is produced in the oceans. They function as carbon sinks, breaking down carbon at a rate which is more than 50 times greater than that of the atmosphere. Coral reefs are amongst the most biologically diverse and valuable ecosystems on Earth. They are often referred to as tropical rainforests of the oceans and are home to more than 25% of the entire planet's marine life. Astonishingly, they account for only 1% of the Earth's total marine environment. While corals may look like plants or rocks, they are in fact animals which root in the ocean floor. The process of reef formation begins when free-swimming coral larvae get attached to submerged rocks or other hard surfaces along the edges of the land. For instance, 100-year-old shipwrecks provide suitable settings for the corals to thrive. The coral larvae can land anywhere on a surface, and eventually, the surrounding area becomes a habitat for marine life. Corals are sensitive. The reefs grow in warm water between 21 and 29 degrees Celsius. Corals prefer clear and shallow waters where the sunlight is plenty. This is because there exists a symbiotic relationship between corals and zooxanthellae algae. Inside each coral polyp lives a single-celled algae called zooxanthellae. The zooxanthellae capture sunlight and perform photosynthesis, supplying oxygen and other nutrients to the coral polyp, which aid in its survival. In turn, the zooxanthellae are provided with carbon dioxide expelled by the polyp, which these need to undergo photosynthesis. In addition, the presence of zooxanthellae imparts coloured pigments to help protect the coral's white skeleton from sunlight. Coral reefs support an incredible diversity of fishes. There are strong mutual dependencies between the reef-building corals and reef-inhabiting fishes. As many species of fish depend on corals for food and habitat. Hundreds of species exist in a small area of healthy reef. Many of them hidden or well camouflaged. The spread of coral diseases is mitigated by fishes in certain cases. It is because of these balanced relationships. That our marine ecosystems are diverse and abundant with life. Sea turtles play a vital role in maintaining the health of the world's oceans. These roles range from maintaining productive coral reef ecosystems to transporting essential nutrients from the oceans to the coastal areas. When it comes to nesting, each turtle can lay up to 100 eggs per clutch. It is estimated that only 1 in 1,000 hatchlings survive to adulthood. The nutrients left behind due to the eggshells and the dead hatchlings make up for an important source of coastal vegetation and ecosystem. The lionfish are certainly one of the most beautiful and striking inhabitants of the reef. Lionfish are known for their venomous fin spines. During daytime, they mostly stay hidden and hang upside down in small caves and overhangs. They become active at dusk. The diet of a lionfish includes more than 40 species of fish and many invertebrate species. The lionfish are solitary creatures and are very particular about their territory. A female lionfish releases up to 20 million eggs per year, which is an incredibly high rate of reproduction. The goby fish ploughs through the ocean floor using its pelvic fins to remain aloft. And feeds over smaller animals in the sand. It filters out unwanted sand through its gills. Another similarly unique creature is the goatfish. Its dorsal fins are well separated by a pair of long, sensory chin barbels. The barbels are used to probe sand or holes for small invertebrates. When not in use, the barbels are tucked out of sight between the lower portions of the gill covers. Another unique species called wrasfish, getting a feed from the effort of goatfish. The pufferfish are interesting creatures with more than 100 species. These mostly thrive in tropical waters and dwell either in reefs or on sand flats. Whenever a pufferfish feels threatened, it puffs up to 2 or 3 times its normal size, using their extremely elastic stomach. Most species contain a toxin that is 1,200 times stronger than cyanide. The second most poisonous creature in the world releases this toxin through their skin only when it is threatened. Teeth of the pufferfish keep growing throughout their lifespan. Hence, they feed on hard shells to trim them in a natural manner. The the crown-of-thorns starfish, is a large sea star that preys upon coral polyps. Hence, increase in the number of these fishes is detrimental to the coral reefs. Nurse sharks are one of the species of sharks that are able to remain perfectly still. These can grow up to 10 feet in length and prefer resting in caves or under ledges during the daytime. The remora is a small fish which feeds off parasites from the shark's skin and mouth. This satisfies the sharks, as the parasites would otherwise irritate them. The front dorsal fins of the remora have evolved over time into an organ that sits in a suction cup on the top of their heads. This aids them in getting stuck on the body of the other fishes and travel long distances. Sea cucumbers are important marine invertebrates that can be found worldwide in both shallow and deep ocean waters. They feed on miniature beings like algae, minute aquatic animals, or waste materials. They gather food with the help of tube feet that are present on the lining of their mouths. There are typically 8 to 30 tube feet in a sea cucumber. These tentacle-like structures are used to filter food from seawater and to ingest and process organic material from the sediment. These animals break the organic material down into even smaller pieces, which then become fodder for bacteria and thus are recycled back into the ocean ecosystem. They often leave neat rows of excrement behind them. Most sea cucumbers also have tube feet they use for locomotion. Sea cucumbers' unimpressive appearance belies the outsized role that these creatures play in decomposing organic matter into recyclable nutrients and keeping the coastal ecosystems healthy and clean. Poaching of sea cucumbers can have negative impacts on coastal marine environments. Another unique creature, called the sea anemone, is a predatory invertebrate with no bones. There are more than 1,000 species of sea anemones that can be found in the ocean. They tend to stick to firm objects underwater and catch the passing marine life with their tentacles. Their tentacles contain a toxic sting, which is capable of paralysing even large marine creatures. Clownfish are vibrantly coloured reef fishes. These fishes are one of the few species that can survive the sting of an anemone. When they sense an approaching predator, they hide into the tentacles of the sea anemones. The symbiotic relationship between an anemone and a clownfish is a classic example of two organisms helping each other. The anemone provides the clownfish with protection and shelter, while the clownfish supplies essential nutrients to the anemone in the form of waste, which helps in its growth and recovery. Also scaring off potential predator fish that feed on anemones. The clownfish dart out of the anemone only to catch their prey and hide back at once. The clownfish live their whole lives inside an anemone's venomous tentacles. They help with pruning the tentacles, keeping anemones healthy. Parrotfish are a colourful species of fish. There are about 60 species of parrotfish that dwell within the coral reefs. These tropical creatures spend 90% of their day eating algae from the surface of the corals. Their digestive systems grind up the inedible calcium carbonate from the coral skeleton and defecate it as sand. This process produces hundreds of pounds of white sand each year, and this is one of the reasons why sand keeps accumulating on the ocean floor and beaches. The parrotfish performs the essential task of cleaning the reefs, which help the corals to stay healthy and thriving. Moray eels are unique creatures with over 200 distinct species that are found across the world. The size of a moray eel ranges from 6 inches to 15 feet. Moray eyesight is not particularly good. Their main hunting aid is their excellent sense of smell, which helps in finding the prey. This slender striped profile helps them in tunnelling through the tightest crevices, making them hard to spot. Their head is mostly the only part that is visible through their hiding places. Moray eels have 180 flexible vertebrae, which produces the S-shaped swimming style. Eels habitually open and close their mouths to pump water into their gills. This is due to small, restricted gill openings without covers. Moray eels are incredibly powerful predators, having a second set of jaws in their throat called pharyngeal jaws. They are the only species of fish with 2 sets of jaws. While feeding, morays bite into their prey with enormous force using their outer jaws. The second set of jaws, which are set back in the throat, help in pulling the victim into their digestive system. Moray eels are the only fish that use pharyngeal jaws to capture prey. Earth's climate is now changing at a rate that is faster than any prior climatic changes. This is not natural. And the cause behind this global climate change is driven by carbon emissions. It has been estimated that 58% of the world's coral reef communities are decaying because of the changing climate. The zooxanthellae tend to die or leave their host at high water temperatures. This process is known as bleaching, and skeletal growth is inhibited due to this. Outright loss of corals strongly reduces the amount of carbonate material available for atoll growth. If corals and reef sand are not produced fast enough, the atolls run the risk of eventually drowning. In line with the national policy, the Department of Environment and Forests of Lakshadweep administration is bound to work towards reducing the negative environmental impacts caused by human activities, as well as natural phenomenon. For instance, a ghost net is a fishing net that's been lost or left by fishermen in the sea. These nets continue to trap everything in their path, presenting a major problem for the health of our oceans and marine life. Many marine animals get injured or killed due to these ghost nets. Certified divers from the department remove the nets as much as possible to protect the marine life. Poaching of sea cucumbers and other valuable marine creatures is often noticed. Various camps have been set up in various remote areas to check the illegal poaching activities. Everything on our planet is related. Impacts on ecosystems include the migration or extinction of numerous species as their environment changes. Hence, humans must keep in mind that whatever harms nature harms humans too. And if nature thrives, then humans will